is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting. Good evening. President Reagan made a speech today designed to counter Mikhail Gorbachev's latest charm offensive and stop talk that Mr. Reagan was so eager to get an arms deal that he was suckered into a bad deal. The president is especially eager to deny that he will give in to Gorbachev on the Star Wars missile defense, or possibly already has done that. Bill Plant was in Florida for Mr. Reagan's Selling of the Summit tour.
President Reagan took a tough line toward the Soviets just 1 week before he will sign an arms control agreement with Mikhail Gorbachev. Delivering a message designed to pacify conservatives, Mr. Reagan warned a high school audience in Jacksonville, Florida, that what he envisions is not the same as the détente of the 1970s.
While talking friendship, the Soviets worked even faster on the largest military buildup in world history. They stepped up their aggression around the world. They became more repressive at home. We do not want mere words. This time, we're after true peace.
And that, says Mr. Reagan, means that he will talk to Gorbachev about freedom for political and religious dissenters in the Soviet Union, about Kremlin bloc aid to Nicaragua, and about the Soviet presence in Afghanistan.
It is time for the Soviets to set a date certain for withdrawal, to talk with the freedom fighters, and to allow the people of Afghanistan to determine their own destiny.
What's more, Mr. Reagan told a student, he's not at all concerned about the Soviet campaign promoting Gorbachev's youthful, vigorous image.
I don't resent his popularity or anything else, and good Lord, I co-starred with Errol Flynn once.
And some of the president's supporters fear that despite the hardline rhetoric, his openness to Gorbachev means that he's abandoned the conservative agenda.
That he seems to have accepted the idea that he can make some kind of peace with Gorbachev. And I think this is a very dangerous concept.
Mr. Reagan may be talking tough to calm his critics, but there can be little doubt that arms control is at the top of his agenda, and that he personally feels that he's ready to take on Mikhail Gorbachev. All of this has prompted one conservative critic to lament, "For years we said, let Reagan be Reagan," and now he is. Bill Plant, CBS News, with the president in Jacksonville.
Federal officials tonight report a big swing in their dealings with Cuban inmates who are holding 90 hostages in that Atlanta prison. The rebellion to protest plans to deport some 2,500 prisoners back to Cuba is not over. But Bill Whitaker explains why the deep pessimism of past days is lifting somewhat.
Late this afternoon, officials at the Atlanta Federal Penitentiary announced the first real progress since riots broke out here 9 days ago.
At this point, there is apparently a substantial agreement on a number of issues, and it is fair to say that the latest discussion was considerably more encouraging than others we have had in the past few days.
The inmate leaders have taken the agreement back inside to get the approval of the 1,100 still holding the prison. 2 times before, the Cuban inmates have rejected plans worked out by their leaders to release 50 hostages. A Cuban exile who has been inside to speak with the inmates says this agreement could meet the same fate.
Well, the only obstacle that remains for the negotiation now are the radicals who are in control of the hostages.
But from their perch on the prison rooftop, the Cubans used loudspeakers to deny charges of disunity. Federal negotiators are cautiously hopeful, believing they are now dealing with a unified leadership. They called today's negotiations businesslike and courteous.
It was restricted to the core issues, and you felt like you were really talking about something that represented the meat of what we have to agree upon.
As the Cubans settled in for another cold night, prison officials caution no final settlement is at hand. Yet tonight, they appear more optimistic than at any time since the takeover began. Bill Whitaker, CBS News, Atlanta.
The Electoral Council of Haiti challenged the military government today. The military chief said he was abolishing the whole council when he called off last Sunday's blood-stained elections, but the council members today quoted the Haitian Constitution, which gives them the sole right to organize national elections. Victoria Corderia reports on the struggle for Haiti's future.
More than half of the stores in Port-au-Prince open today, but the atmosphere remains volatile. Nightly shooting sprees continue, and people reportedly have begun to move out of the downtown area, where violence is common.
After the Election Day massacre, some activists predicted there would be popular unrest and a general strike, but little has happened. One reason is most of the radio stations have been sabotaged. The radio is a unifying force here.
They wanted to prevent popular mobilization by destroying the radio stations.
The culprits are believed to be a loose alliance of Duvalier loyalists and members of the military who are being blamed for the months of violence.
Why they did it, it's because they don't want to listen to the truth. And they just want to run the country the way it was before.
Several radio stations have been forced off the air by gunfire and arson. Radio En Terre, a popular station that has been critical of the military government, was riddled with bullets. Owner Jean Dominique last week predicted the army would stage a coup and stop the elections. He also predicted he would be targeted for assassination. He is now in hiding. Over the summer, the radio helped mobilize strikes and protests when the government tried to take over the electoral process. Before the election, the radio was used to dispel rumors the vote would be canceled. Today, except for one conservative station and the government-run operation, the radio is silent. Victoria Corderi, CBS News, Port-au-Prince.
A struggling to catch up U.S. State Department today said it has cut off most military and economic aid now to Haiti, but critics insist the damage is already done and that a wiser U.S. policy could have prevented it. CBS News Chief Washington Correspondent Bob Schieffer has more on the political aftermath of Haiti's canceled election.
Americans on the scene when the trouble broke out summed it up quickly on return home tonight.
What happened on Sunday was basically a military coup against the people of Haiti.
When the Duvalier family dictatorship fell apart last year, the United States threw its support behind the military government run by this man, Lieutenant General Henri Namfi, a high-risk policy that has apparently backfired.
There were ample signals all along the line that the provisional government in that country was not doing the job, was not providing security, and could not be depended upon to stage a fair election.
With policy now in shambles, critics piled on today. The Miami Herald called for a U.S. invasion of Haiti. A New York Times columnist agreed. On Capitol Hill, a frenzy of tough talk.
The U.S. State Department is guilty of a monumental blunder. Our stupidity has betrayed the masses of Haiti.
D.C. Delegate Walter Fauntleroy wants an international peacekeeping force, including U.S. troops, to guarantee a safe, free election in Haiti.
That will enable them to elect a government of their own choosing and protect them from a government and a gang of thugs who are brutally seeking to deny them that right.
The Reagan administration opposes any kind of U.S. military intervention, and on that much at least, Haitian refugees in Miami agree.
We don't want another Chile. We don't want occupation either. We want a free country.
Haiti's neighbors are also cool to the idea of U.S. intervention.
There's plenty of room for discussion, negotiation, establishment of stability, and I certainly don't think that any military intervention would be the appropriate measure to take.
As Seaga and other Caribbean leaders discussed the problem in Miami today, there was no real consensus on what the United States should do next. But critics said U.S. policy so far may have produced just the opposite of what was intended.
We're going to see unprecedented levels of violence and, for the first time, the creation of a leftist insurgency in that country.
So U.S. officials now find themselves in the unhappy position of counting on the Haitian government to put down the trouble amid increasing signs it is the government that's causing it. Dan?
Thank you, Bob. Another bizarre and deadly twist today in the story of the Korean airliner that disappeared over the Asian jungle Sunday. Police now believe the plane was destroyed by a terrorist bomb planted by a mysterious Asian couple who later tried to kill themselves by taking cyanide. In Tokyo, Barry Peterson is on the story.
The key to the disappearance of Flight 858 may rest with a young woman hospitalized in Bahrain tonight. A woman and an elderly man boarded the flight in Baghdad, leaving when the plane refueled in Abu Dhabi. The jetliner vanished on its way to Seoul. Officials say it may have blown up in midair. The man and woman went on to nearby Bahrain, where they were stopped because of suspicions about the authenticity of their Japanese passports. They swallowed poison capsules while awaiting questioning. He died. She remains in critical condition. South Korean officials say the couple may be North Korean agents or linked to the terrorist group, the Japanese Red Army. Red Army leader Osamu Muraoka was arrested in Japan last week with plane tickets to Seoul. Japanese authorities warned of possible terrorist acts, saying the group's next target may be the 1988 Seoul Olympics. Meanwhile, there is little hope that any of the 115 on board survived. The search for the wreckage resumes tomorrow. Barry Peterson, CBS News, Tokyo.
And still to come tonight on the CBS Evening News, Lem Tucker on the U.S. government's new effort to protect the ozone layer. And David Martin takes his second hard look at the soldiers of the Red Army. It's huge, all right, but how good is it?
If you thought you had to give up comfort to get a close shave, Norelco says, think again. Their revolutionary shaving system shaves skin close in a way that's incredibly comfortable. As the hair enters the chamber, the patented lift and cut system lifts each hair and holds it a split second before a blade cuts it. So it's possible to shave skin close without the blades even touching the skin. Norelco Rotitract, where close and comfortable come face to face. This Stetson pre-shave can be yours free with selected Norelco razors. This Pontiac Trans Am could be yours, with a little luck. Enter Norelco's Quest for the Gold sweepstakes. Look for details wherever Norelco razors are sold.
Peace and quiet are not part of this job. Headaches are. I used to take aspirin or Tylenol, but today I take Advil. Advil gets rid of my headaches, and it's gentler to my stomach than aspirin. Advil, advanced medicine for pain.
Imagine how good it would feel to be regular for the rest of your life.
Time to run, boy?
You could be. Irregularity is often due to a lack of fiber, and doctors recommend Metamucil fiber by name. They know how effective use of natural Metamucil can be. Ask your doctor.
Maybe Sparky would like to sleep in this morning.
Metamucil, and you could be regular for the rest of your life.
The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency proposed new restrictions today on two widely used chemicals eating away the Earth's protective ozone layer high in the sky. Lem Tucker reports on the health hazard for people down on the ground and what's to be done about it.
The government's answer to the ozone problem, limiting the production of two chemicals that are found all around us. Chlorofluorocarbons, for example, are used in automobile air conditioning, in making computer chips, and in styrofoam food and drink containers. Halon is used principally as a fire suppressant in places like computer rooms. It is ozone in the stratosphere which protects the Earth from the full blast of the sun's ultraviolet radiation. Scientists believe that the chemicals, chlorofluorocarbons and halon, react with the ozone layer, depleting its protective power. The result, more ultraviolet radiation comes to Earth, and that can cause skin cancer and more.
Beyond skin cancer, also concerns as far as health is concerned about increased cataracts and suppression of the immune system. Beyond that, many ecological effects.
Under the government plan, use of chlorofluorocarbons would be cut in half by 1999. Halon use would be frozen at its 1986 level. The industry is backing the government proposal, but some critics say it isn't enough.
The reductions are not going to go far enough or fast enough to stop ozone depletion. Ozone depletion is going on now because of the chemicals that are already loaded into the atmosphere.
But EPA argues that if the U.S. and other countries abide by a new agreement to cut chemical production, it will be enough to protect the Earth. Lem Tucker, CBS News, Washington.
Amid continuing controversy over whether a U.S. space station can and should be built in the 1990s, NASA today awarded 4 of the big-ticket contracts for it, contracts worth years of work and billions of dollars. McDonnell Douglas and Boeing won out over competitors. General Electric and Rocketdyne won by default. They were the only bidders on building the space station power systems and orbiting science platform. The Commerce Department today said its chief economic forecasting tool dropped in October for the first time in 9 months, but the 0.2% decrease in the index of leading indicators was less than many analysts expected in the wake of Black Monday's Wall Street crash.
See this phone? This is my store. And for years, my store was at the mercy of AT&T. But now, with MCI, I finally have an 800 service that charges me only for the actual distance of the calls we get, and can tell me where every one of those calls is coming from. And that makes this a better store.
Until you call, you'll never know how much better a long-distance company can be. MCI. Let us show you.
It's Red Lobster's new Seafood Trios.
1, 2, 3 seafood favorites on one dish, 3 different tastes, each one delish.
7 all-new Seafood Trios starting at $6.95.
Stuffed shrimp starts our new shrimp trio, followed by fried shrimp from the sea. Oh my, that scampi makes this platter sure to please. At Red Lobster, good things come in threes.
And treat your kids to their own child's trio, just $1.95.
Folks, it's official. The Big Mouth is now the Fresh Mouth, thanks to new Super Strength Polident. It has a minty mouthwash ingredient that freshens up dentures as it cleans tough stains. Try new Polident Green for a mouth freshening clean.
Tums is one antacid that can really handle heartburn. It's a lot stronger than the number 2 brand.
That's one good reason we use Tums. And Tums happens to be rich in calcium.
That's the second good reason.
A U.S. Supreme Court ruling today in a case involving the historic American constitutional line separating church and state in the public schools. The justices refused to let New Jersey provide public school students with daily moments of silence in the classroom. It was on technical grounds without actually ruling whether these moments amount to unconstitutional public school prayer. Environmental groups lost a big one at the Supreme Court today, a ruling that private citizens may not sue industrial polluters for past violations of the Federal Clean Air Act. In his quest for the Republican presidential nomination, Pete DuPont today won endorsement by a newspaper that likes to think of itself as a kind of kingmaker in New Hampshire. The paper, the Manchester Union Leader, is known for its hardline right rhetoric, which raises the questions, who is this obscure candidate, and what, if anything, does he stand for? Bob Fall has been looking for answers as part of our series of early coverage on all presidential candidates.
Pete DuPont started running before any other candidate, but in this campaign, a lot of people still don't know who Delaware's former governor and congressman is. Do you know who that was?
Well, I'm not sure. Was it Dukakis?
Guess again. One more guess.
Gephardt.
Politically, DuPont has to get recognized as something more than the man who's worth $6 million or who once had a date with Jane Fonda. To do that, he's labeled his Republican challengers peas in a pod, says they're all talking about the same thing. By contrast, DuPont's ideas are new, provocative, and not always what his listeners want to hear.
Our proposal, very simply, is if you want the privilege of a driver's license, you have to pass a driving test and a drug test.
But many students regard that call for mandatory drug tests as an invasion of privacy.
I think it's messed up. And another thing about it is that it's random. You know, let's say Eric here, let's say he did acid and coke all the time, and I just smoked one joint. I could be the one that was tested while he got away with it.
DuPont's call for a private alternative to Social Security.
To start right today and let every one of us open a private savings account like a super IRA.
That proposal makes a lot of senior citizens shudder.
I don't think he's informed at all.
DuPont has even proposed the unthinkable for the nation's farmers.
We should stop paying farmers not to grow crops.
Ending $26 billion in farm subsidies. Who's for it? Only Pete DuPont.
But when DuPont tried to sell that to these farmers, they told him, no way.
I don't know what we'd do without farm programs.
Still, DuPont has managed to raise a surprisingly large war chest. This soiree, for example, netted $125,000.
I think he's going to take hold. He's a long shot, but I think he's a good shot.
The trouble is, what is magic to blue bloods does not necessarily play well in Peoria.
I don't think he really knows how the common, ordinary person lives. Would a man with the name of DuPont really know?
DuPont says the record proves that he does know. As governor, 8 straight budget surpluses and tax cuts for the average Delaware family of 30%.
First, you have to start the discussion, get the debate going, and then people will decide, well, you know, maybe he's right.
So he keeps raising his lance to joust with the others, even though they're convinced all Pete DuPont is doing is tilting at windmills.
How about that?
Bob Fall, CBS News, Boone, Iowa.
You're pretty jolly.
American writer James Baldwin died today of cancer at his home in France. He was 63. Beginning with his first novel, Go Tell It on the Mountain, Baldwin's writing brought the experience of black people in America home to a wide audience. Baldwin was born and raised in Harlem, but he wrote most of his novels, plays, and poetry in France. He returned to America to join the civil rights struggle in the 1950s, but later said he had lost his hope of seeing racial progress in this country.
I'm not going to live another 60 years. You always told me it takes time. It has taken my father's time, my mother's time, my uncle's time, my brother's and my sister's time, my nieces and my nephew's time. How much time do you want for your progress?
Author James Baldwin, dead in France at 63.
If they could see you now out on a fun ship cruise, you're eating fancy food and doing what you choose. I'd like your friends back home to get a good look at the first-rate carnival cruise that you took. All I can say is, wow, hey, look at where you are. What a fun ship, holy cow. They'd never believe it if your friends could see you now.
Take a 3, 4, or 7-day cruise on Carnival, the most popular cruise line in the world.
With most rechargeable lights, you need an extra hand to shine them where you want. So First Alert created Ready Light, the rechargeable light with a swivel head. Ready Light from First Alert, always ready to lend a hand.
It's been a long day, big boy. Still got something left? Sure you do. Yeah. Wheaties, Wheaties, pure whole wheat. Now go tell your mama what the big boys eat.
Oh, we French introduced the food processor, I know. But only I had the courage to come out and say the Oster Kitchen Center appliance is better. It's a slicer, shredder, and a mixer, I know. It's an Osterizer blender and needs dough, I know. It even turns into a mini food processor, I know. But the Oster Kitchen Center is missing one important thing. The French name.
Military experts say that in conventional non-nuclear forces, the Soviet Union and its allies hold at least a 2-to-1 advantage over the United States and its allies in Europe. Still, the size of a conventional force alone doesn't always tell the whole story. David Martin has been taking a close-up look at the quality of the Soviet military. And here is part 2 of his special report, Inside the Red Army.
Reveille at a Soviet military base southwest of Moscow. The Soviet army begins a new day. Like most days in this man's army, it figures to be a tough one. It is well below freezing, and the only thing these soldiers have on beneath their uniforms is shorts and undershirts. These are not killer calisthenics, but they get the blood moving. In the Soviet army, the cold does not stop anything. The training starts early and will end in the dark. The water may be heated, but the air is not. War, of course, can get very hot. Live ammunition is not being used here, but Soviet training has the reputation of producing more casualties than similar exercises in the West. These may look like professional soldiers, battle-hardened commandos from Afghanistan, perhaps, but we were told they, like most of the Soviet Army, are just young draftees doing their 2 years of compulsory military service. If that's true, these men are very fast learners. Yet almost everywhere we went, we saw the same thing, young faces.
If you had to pinpoint the single biggest difference between the American and Soviet armies, it would not be the weapons, but the soldiers. Ours is an all-volunteer force. This is an army of conscripts.
Every 6 months, in May and again in November, 18-year-olds are called up for 2 years active duty. They have no choice about where they will be sent. If they're short and show mechanical aptitude, they may end up in a tank unit like this one.
The most difficult period is the start. You find yourself in a different atmosphere, different nationalities, different people. It takes time to get used to them.
Yes, it's very hard. The biggest load in the Army lies on the shoulders of the soldier.
A Soviet officer told us conscripts were like small children, and in some respects, that's how they're treated. cartoons during lunch break in the field, sweets back at their club in the evening. Although in a country of shortages, we suspect this groaning board was more for the benefit of our cameras than the soldiers. The pay of a Soviet soldier is miserable. 7.5 rubles a month, about $12. The hours are long. Soviet officers told us that since they only have the conscripts for 2 years, they have to pack as much training in as possible. 19-year-old Alexei is showing off pictures of his wife and baby, but he may not get to see them during his time in uniform unless his performance is good enough to earn a 10-day leave. Not surprisingly, only 1 or 2 out of every 100 conscripts decides to stay in the Army.
No, I don't think of that.
Yes, of course I plan to leave and go back home.
The constant turnover means that every 6 months the most experienced soldiers return to civilian life to be replaced by another batch of raw recruits. Another problem. The Soviet population is made up of dozens of different nationalities speaking different languages. According to U.S. estimates, as many as 1 out of every 4 Soviet soldiers does not speak Russian.
People are different from different levels of education, from different cultures. To make it go smoothly, you have to make a lot of effort to rally them as one unit.
Units like this chemical warfare detachment, which require a lot of classroom instruction, seem to have virtually no Asians or other minorities. Imagine looking at any American military unit and not seeing any black or Hispanic faces. The Soviets are well aware of the problems of a conscript army, but claim that when virtually every mother's son has to do his 2 years' service, it creates a bond between the Army and the rest of society, which doesn't exist with professional armies. In the end, it will all come down to how well they can fight. David Martin, CBS News at the Narofominsk military base in the Soviet Union.
And we'll have part 3 of David Martin's series later in the week. For now, that's the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather, we hope you'll watch CBS This Morning, tomorrow morning. I'll see you here tomorrow night.
The stars are gonna twinkle and shine. How they'll shine this evening about 8:45. I know I won't be late. Oh, that 8:30. I'm gonna hurry there. I'll be waiting where
They say time is what you make it. At Citizen, we prefer making it beautiful.
about 8:45.
Citizen.
AT&T comes through with an advanced telemarketing solution. When a trucker's down, he needs service fast. But where does he find help in the middle of nowhere? That's why Goodyear turned to AT&T. Now a trucker just calls 1-800 number to reach the nearest service outlet. So he can get back on the road in no time at all. And sometimes, even sooner. From equipment to networking, from computers to communications, AT&T is the right choice.
Your mom always said it's the thought that counts. At Kmart, we know how important nice thoughts are, and we believe that they shouldn't have to cost a lot. That's what makes us America's favorite store. Kmart, the saving place.
Phone calls, deadlines, stomach complaints, my job, and my Lanta 2.
Double strength my Lanta 2. Nearly double the acid neutralizing power of any leading brand.
Because my life takes my Lanta 2.
This is CBS.